Hey.
There we go. Welcome, guys. Thank you all for joining us today. We are going to be talking about our chapter recognition and awards program. I'm going to present that. Hopefully you all know me, Jennifer Steffen, the chapter relations manager, but I'm not doing it alone today. Alyssa Ellington, who is our ambassador from Area 8, and Ginger Line, who is an ambassador from Area 6, will be co-presenting with me today. I do not anticipate us taking the entire hour, but please continue to chat us up, ask questions, take yourself off mute, raise your hand as we go along. We'll be more than happy to answer any of those questions. We are recording and we'll post that into the resource library along with the slide deck as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. What we are going to go over today is just a recap of the participation from 2023 in those chapters that participated in the Outstanding and the Performance Seal, the purpose of both of those programs, how to fill out the Performance Standard Seal and the Outstanding Award. And then we have some tips from our judges that are going to be a good insight when they're looking at those Outstanding Awards and what they're looking for in that criteria. So first, I always like to start with acknowledging those chapters last year that earned their performance seals. We had an increase in that, and that was really exciting to see. As some of you are aware, there's possibilities for you to move and change within the SEAL program each year, but we would like to continue to recognize and hopefully that you have these seals on your website.
Hi, this is Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, it's Vince. I was giving you a call.
Yeah, what do we need to get together?
Sorry, guys, there. Just wanted to mute that real quick. We want to make sure that you're hopefully promoting these to your chapter members, to outside constituents, that you've earned your seal within the Institute. So congratulations for those who've done that last year or the previous year as well. I hear we're hearing issues with an echo. Anything, are we doing okay with the echo?
Good.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thanks, guys. All right, so this is continuing with recognizing previous winners. These are our outstanding chapter award winners down the left, and then all of those chapters that participated in submitting for those. One of the things that I like to point out, and we'll talk about when we talk about the outstanding award, is that, you know, there was a perception that the bigger the chapter, the more members that you had, the more activities you had, the more likely you are to win awards. And I think it's really exciting to see when you look at Idaho, Utah, Central Florida, and Virginia, we've got small to extra large chapters winning in each of those categories. So it does show that any chapter is eligible and capable of winning an outstanding award. It's just not always our big chapters. But congratulations again to our 2023 outstanding award winners. So what are our awards and recognitions? We are doing a two-layered approach. We are now in our third year of this process. We got rid of the Chapter of the Year award and replaced it with these two different awards and recognitions. And first is our Performance Standard Seal. This is a standard in which we want and strive for chapters to get at. Each year we evaluate the questions that we ask. Are they pertinent to what's happening in our chapters? And it is on you all to try to strive to reach the goals of the things that we think makes a strong chapter. Within that, you're then awarded that digital seal we just saw in either a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. And this is the opportunity for you to be recognized for your overall practices and programs as a chapter. And again, like I talked about, it really removes some of those biases about your chapter size, that always the large or the ones that win or with the most members or programs. So we'll talk in detail about how we do that scoring and how that works out. On the flip side of that, we have our outstanding chapter awards. And this is not just looking at your overall chapter, but looking at very specific practices and programs that you have. You can apply in one of our 4 different categories. We have a winner in each one of those categories. And if you attend forum, that's the opportunity that your chapter gets the big pop-up banner and on stage. And then all of submissions, regardless if they're winners or not, get incorporated back into our resource library as resources in whatever subject matter that you presented on. And again, these are very specific programs and practices your chapter's done, and performance standard seal is really the overall performance of your chapter. Why would you want to participate? Well, I think for one, it's really a chance for you as a chapter to get recognized for the work that you do and the work that you do to promote the profession. I really think as long as I've been here in my 16 years, I think it's an opportunity to get recognition that you all deserve. I am a huge advocate for volunteer leaders and the time and commitment that you all put in to your chapters. And I love to see that you get those accolades through our awards program. I also think it's pretty easy. Those who've been around a while and who've done other submissions know that, it used to take hours and hours to put together chapter of the year by size. Now we've really cut down your time from 100 hours to just a few hours to either one of these awards. And again, it helps us with our resource library. And when you submit for the outstanding award, for us to help populate best practices and programs that you all are working on that another chapter may be struggling with, may want to enhance or revamp, and it gives them an opportunity to look at a program that you're putting together and maybe tweak theirs or look at some other best practices for it. So first, we are going to have Ginger talk to us and go into some greater detail about the chapter performance standard seal.
Thank you. So the seal is, like Jen said, the bronze, the silver, the gold, the platinum that your chapter can have. And of course, once you get it, you see that on chapter websites and promote it on social media as well. And it really does show to your chapter members that, you're not just not doing anything, because we all have those chapter members that think that, but it is reviewed by NIGP to actually show that you're improving and you're doing great things. We did try to keep it simple. Again, like Jen said, there is 60 questions in 4 different categories, because all of those categories are very important to your chapter. So chapter operations, membership, advocacy and outreach, and professional development. And most of those questions are yes or no. So it is not, you have to drag in all of this information and dive into it, and it's going to take so long. Most of them are yes or no. In fact, if you are a board member, you might know a lot of these on your own without even doing any additional research. And then 15 questions do ask for a numeric response, so you might need to run some numbers. So a couple of things to remember: you must be current with all your chapter reporting forms. This is important to do anyway, either you sign up for the seal or not, but that is a requirement. NIGP could audit your response. We don't want someone to just say yes to everything just to get a higher score. And then everything must be in regards to your 2023 activities. So don't think of it as, did we have a question? No? Okay. Well, if you do, you can pop in again if you would like. So that's fine, or you can type it as well. So here's the thing that not a lot of people maybe either know about or have used in the past, but NIGP is here to help you with some of the information. So they have the ability to tell you who's attended NIGP forum in person or virtual. That is one of the questions, is how many of your chapter members have attended. Webinar speakers, any of your chapter members that are on boards, because I know that it is sometimes difficult to know all of the volunteerism that your chapter members do. And so it is really good to run that by NIGP. So use them. It actually makes this job even easier for you if you reach out to Jen and say, hey, can you help me with this? If you don't know Jen's email, even though you're here and you should, you can reach out to your chapter ambassadors as well. So, but there is that email.
Ginger, if I can add just two quick things about this. That report that she's talking about in that right blue box there, it's going to be an Excel spreadsheet, and I believe it has about 5 tabs along the bottom. So there's a lot of data that we've run on our end again, that you may not be keeping or tracking within your membership, but it'll allow you to answer those questions really easily to get that numeric response. Kim asked if there was someone to contact to verify all of our reporting. Kim, you can contact that with me, can ask that with me. And I also wanted to respond to the audit. I think Ginger is correct. We certainly don't want chapters to just hit yes, 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 because they want a platinum seal. But also is a time for me that if you do something, say with your member data, I've gotten your member data form and all of a sudden those numbers are complete opposite to each other. It's not that I want to try to call anybody out, but also as a great way of verifying that what was submitted maybe by one person on the member data form is something different that somebody else is running. So it allows us to do some checks and balances for you all as well on that data. Somebody asked about that data here. Will it automatically be given to you? No, you need to request it from me. So please just shoot me an email. I'm sure there are 65 of you on this call. Hopefully I'll get 65 requests and we'll send that out to everybody. But yeah, I need you to request that.
Well, you can also coordinate if 2 people from your chapter are on here and just
Yes.
send 1 email. But if Jen wants 65 emails, that's fine. That's fine.
But yes, please do request that. And selfishly, I ask that because it also lets me kind of know what chapters are in the process of putting together a seal. We as staff and our ambassadors like to follow up with chapters that maybe have never submitted for a seal before. And this kind of gives us an inkling of maybe who's already dabbling in it, who had never done it before, that maybe we want to call and help or talk through that process if they need it. So I kind of like to keep track of who's requesting it, because then I know that they probably should be submitting a seal and it's something we can follow up with.
Yep. And then the reports that are provided are listed here on the right on this slide. So no, it's not everything that you'll need to respond, but it will be helpful, especially on those 15 numeric response questions.
Yeah, Lisa, that's a great question. There is going to be some things about the amount of hours or the time education you offer, or how many people are certified. Those are all things that you would keep within your database. I'm providing you everything in which NIGP would house. I think it is actually 5 of the questions that we provide that data for to help. Good question.
So we'll move on to the actual document. This is a snippet of the actual questionnaire that you would be filling out. So hopefully all of you have seen this before, but I know some of you might be newer to chapter leadership. So we do put it in Excel, so it's very easy. If a response is yes or no, that's literally the only response you can put in. You click on the box and yes or no will come up as an answer. We try to make it as easy as possible for you. And then those that actually require a numeric response, you will click on it and you will see it's either percentage or a total number. And so you don't have to guess, what are we really asking for here? It is actually in the answer as well. So that's awesome. And then in the last column, you'll see on this slide, it's in red writing, are some examples or some additional information to help you answer the question. So for number 3 at the top, does your chapter have position descriptions that define the roles and responsibilities of volunteers? It says include leader positions, committees, or volunteers. So it kind of helps you answer the question with additional information.
So Ginger, I'm going to elaborate a couple things. This
Yeah.
field here where the red lettering in is not for you to justify or explain your answers. This is not an application in which you have to document or have backup documentation to prove. So we're not looking for you to put any explanation of anything in here. Again, this is just to verify what we're looking for when we want you to answer that question. When we talk about the yes or no, you'll see in the bottom left, this is actually when you click in that cell, this is what's going to populate, what it's going to look like. So you see that yes or no. Valerie asked where we're going to find these. They're in the resource guide. When you click on chapters, it actually says chapter awards and recognition. But Valerie, later I have a slide that actually has the direct link to it. And Ginny, yes, this is in addition to the dashboards. This is completely separate than that.
And so once you filled that out, each year, what happens is we give you 1 point for yes, no points for no, and then your numeric responses are rounded to the nearest whole number. And then how am I going to explain this? Everybody that responds, their responses are ranked from high to low, and then all of the response numbers go into quartiles. So the lowest 25%, the next 25, the next 25, and the top 25. And so that's how we decide who gets what seal. And the reason why is that means 1 year you might get a bronze and you've changed nothing to the next year, but you could end up with a silver, or the opposite could be true. You could start with a silver and the next year you've done nothing different. Then you end up with a bronze because more people have responded and they've done more things. And so that is a little different and maybe a little bit more harder to comprehend for people. But that way, you're going to get a seal that way, as long as you meet the minimums, which is at the bottom here, the 40 points for a bronze at minimum. So know that as you go through it, because there has been some questions on that.
Did
I
you
explain that well, Jen?
let me clarify just a little bit. So what the quartiles allow us to do is actually balance out the small chapters versus the large chapters. For 2 years with spaghetti lines, I've kind of mapped this to see if quartiles really even out the playing field. Again, it's that perception that if you're a larger chapter, your percentages are going to be larger. Therefore, you'd get the 3 or 4 points instead of 1 or 2. And that actually is completely opposite of the case. The example that I like to use is there are chapters that have a lot of members, but they only maybe put 2% of their funds into scholarships. Well, you would think they're such a big chapter, they have lots of members, that they're all of a sudden going to get the 4 points, but that percentage really knocks them down then into that lowest quartile, and it really does balance out those large and small. And like Ginger said, again, that's something new that we added in last year, is that you need to earn a minimum points to earn a seal to get that bronze level. But any questions about that? I know that can be confusing. There is a play in this that you can fluctuate based on who submitted that year, how many people submitted that year, and maybe you didn't change anything at all. But that is, I don't want to use the word competitive, but that is the one piece in which we score against each other.
I would take it as this is your chance to grow. If you are saying, wow, we really only want those 40 points because that's the minimum that we need, and we're not going to change every year. I mean, that's not great for your chapter either. So you do want to grow, and you want, your points to be higher every year, whether that means a bronze, a silver, or etc. I think.
Lastly, I will tell chapters, this is not a difficult application.
Someone had a question, I think, Jen. I thought I heard someone speak.
Yes. Hi, Jen. It's Jenny.
Hi, Jen.
Clarification. Sorry, I should have not looked at an email, so I kind of half heard something, but what piqued my interest was scholarship. Are you talking about like how much we allot in the budget versus what was actually received?
Yeah, it'll be, I don't know the question right off the top of my head, but yeah, the question specifies exactly either how much was given or how much your budget goes towards.
Okay.
Yep.
Good enough.
And Russ is making a good point. So I want to make sure that everyone saw it, but this is a good way to set your strategic plan or goals for your board, is you can base it off the seal and what's included and what you currently do not do. So thanks, Russ.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. That's where I was going to actually go with this, is that, again, we think this is something very simple to fill out, and we would like to get to the point where all of our chapters are submitting for a seal and earning one of them. But if not, it really is a good place to start. Or if you think, we're just reinventing our chapter and we're not ready for that, this is something to look at to decide, these are the things we want to strive for. This is what we want to work on in the next year. So you can use it, to Russ's point, very much a strategic plan. And we look at as a a group of ambassadors every year to make sure that the things that we're asking are relevant, that there aren't new things in play in chapter world, or things are outdated that we need to be removed. So we do look at that each year. Ginny asked about okay, thank you. Yeah, again, for anything for the performance seal and outstanding is all based on the previous year. So it's going to be on 2023. That's what, when you answer that question, you want to say, did that happen in 2023?
Can I add one other thing, Jen? Just to kind of piggyback off what you and Ginger have said, our chapter sees it kind of like if any of you apply for like the AEP award with NPI, it gives us, you know, things that we can strive to do better at. And so we love it. Like it gives us goals to work towards. So same with our chapter on the seal. There will be things on there where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. We've always been a smaller chapter. We can do that. So like we never used to have a budget. And that was one of the things on the seal. I know that's terrible, but we were only like 15 members when I joined 10 years ago. And now we're at like almost 90. And now we have a budget. We've had a budget the last couple of years. And honestly, the idea came up from the seal application. And so hopefully it helps strike some ideas and inspiration to you guys for your chapters to do bigger and better things.
So a couple questions have popped up. Thank you for sharing that, Alyssa. What we're talking about is the calendar year 2023. This is not a fiscal year. This is calendar year January through December. And Kim, I will talk to you offline about your question, but a short answer is no. You can still earn a seal and not have gotten points in those areas and still be eligible. But let's set up a one-on-one and we can talk about that. Yeah, Lori?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I was just going to remind everyone that one of the things that I did when I was preparing these awards, and something to think about, is look at what you got in the past and include that going forward in your strategic plan so that you can work toward those goals for the next year or the year after or whatever. Maybe you don't get it this year, but look at where you were low last year and work toward that in your strategic plan, things you can do to move you to the next level. That's one thing that I recognized when I was working on them, you know, as the first past president. And that's how we did it in our chapter. That's who submitted, was that if I looked at what we did before and what we could do moving forward, we shared that with our current president and tried to work toward those goals.
Also, if Ginger said in here that their past president usually takes the lead on this, you know, there's a lot of ways chapters set up their awards programs and for NIGP and who completes them. Sometimes it is the past president that puts either one of these together. I will caution on when we talk about the outstanding award that it might be more of a team effort. Especially even with this one can be an individual, but you may rely on other people to run reports or get things that you need. But yeah, there usually is good to have kind of a lead to take those on. Anything else about the seal? Good questions, guys. Okay, then let's go to the outstanding award. Alyssa?
All right. So we'll jump into outstanding awards. So as you guys have heard, there's 4 different categories that you can enter on. You are able to pick 1 or up to 2 different categories to submit on. And so these are the ones. So operations. So this would be looking at more your operating processes, your policies, anything related to budget, things like that. Chapter membership, all things relating to membership. What are you doing that's really exciting in the category of membership? Membership benefits, resources, maybe retention and growth, anything in that area. Advocacy and outreach. This is going to be best practices and operations that demonstrate that you're an advocate for your members and our profession as a whole. And then lastly, professional development. So are you guys doing awesome at providing educational resources to your members? So in this, here's the criteria. So in order to submit on one of the outstanding awards, you do first and foremost have to complete the seal application that we just went over. So that has to be done first, then you're eligible to submit on the outstanding award. Again, on this same thing, all programs need to be based on activities happening in 2023. I'll say as a past judge, that's something that people get docked on. If you're just talking about in general, your chapter does this, and there's not like specific verbiage saying this happened in 2023, then you're going to get docked points because we're going to assume this is just kind of like a general thing you guys do, and it might be great, but this is just scored on what you did this last year. Again, you can submit in up to 2 categories if you'd like. You do need to submit it as a final PDF file and no longer than 4 to 5 pages. We did change this a little bit this year, and we aren't being as strict on the 4 pages. So we understand if you kind of go into 5 pages, you're not going to get docked. So you do have up to 5 technically now. And but we do ask that you use the application provided. So again, this is just to keep things simple. We don't want it to be overcomplicated, take too much of your time like past awards programs we did. So use what we give you. It's a Word document, really easy to fill out, PDF it and submit it. The submission does need to follow and answer the scoring criteria, which we'll look at here in a minute. Make sure you highlight only 1 or 2 programs. I would say if there's like one like awesome thing you did, like really focus on that. Now, if you have like 1 or 2 and it's really hard to choose one, then highlight them both. But for me, I know I've filled this out before. It gets kind of tricky when you highlight more than 1. So just make sure that you're able to really explain those well if you're highlighting more than 1, but don't do any more than 2. You can use, obviously it's mostly going to be text-based now with this more simplified format, but it doesn't mean you're not allowed to add in photos or links or even embedded documents. I would steer away from a lot of embedded things, but if you do need some supporting documentation that you really think would support your application, then you're welcome to embed links or documents.
Alyssa, can I just add one thing to that? One thing also the judges will look at is they're not going to go to your embedded document to read it, to score upon it. It's only to support what you may have already put in text. You can't just have a document of embedded, a PDF of all embedded documents. You need to really explain the program, and you'll see that a little bit more when we talk about the criteria, but they're just used as a supporting role. Russ did ask a great question about if you submit in 2 categories. That yes, we'd like you to submit those as 2 separate applications. Don't submit them in 1 document because they're going to 2 different judges and scoring. So we like to keep them separate.
That's a really good point, Jen, about the documents. Yeah, don't try to be sneaky and like embed like another page somewhere, yeah, it should just be supporting. Okay, so the scoring. So in the criteria, so this is the criteria that's listed out in the application. So you want to make sure and think of it as, again, I know we've already kind of said this, but that you are sharing an idea that another chapter could look at and do it themselves. So you're trying to, help them understand it so they can replicate it. Outcomes or results that are clearly identified. So really make sure that you're explaining in detail. I feel like on some of them that we see, there's not a whole lot of detail. The more the better that can fill up, those 4 to 5 pages. Whatever you need to get in there to explain and really clearly talk about what you did, how you did it. Also the differentials. So what makes it different? So it might be something that you've heard of other chapters doing, but maybe it was new to you and it was a really big effort for your chapter to execute this thing. That's still exciting and that's still a good thing to share. So what makes it different? What made it different for you? Lessons learned is a huge one. So share, lessons learned that you can share with other chapters so that if they're trying to do this too, just some tips and tricks for them. And then scoring, just so you have an idea on kind of what we score based off of. So We look at those criteria, and then each section is awarded up to 25 points. And then when we are scoring these different sections, this is kind of the levels of scoring. So 0 to 7 is poor, 8 to 13 satisfactory, 14 to 19 excellent, and then 20 to 25 is really that above and beyond.
Any questions about the scoring? It is very straightforward, but I think the criteria will make sense here on this next slide when it kind of is how it's laid out, Alyssa.
Yep.
I just,
Yep,
I
so
just want to
this-
mention
Go ahead.
that it's not an IKEA furniture directions, right? So we want to make sure that we can literally hand your response to somebody else. They can walk through the steps of what they need to do to replicate it. So you do need to make that clear. So no IKEA directions.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ginger. And guys, think about this. When we think about that they're going in the resource guide. So let's say you're highlighting your reverse trade show. You know, if you are the person on the other end and wanted to know how to do a successful reverse trade show, think about what you would like to see another chapter give you as far as data and input. What is it that you would need to know about how they set it up, the timelines, how did the communication work? And I think it's okay, and we want you to be okay that it worked or it didn't work, or we found we started too late, or we wish we had done this instead. So really think about it as if you wanting that information, what would you like a chapter to be sharing with you so that you could better one of your programs?
Yeah, that's great. And so this is what the application looks like. It's similar to how it looked last year, but there have been some updates recently. So we tried to really look at it and make it even clearer this year, I think. And relevant, you know, to what we're wanting. So again, you'd pick your category you're going to submit on there on this left snapshot. And then here's just some examples of, these are the 3 out of the 4 criteria that you're going to be filling out. So I always like to, like, if you chose chapter operations, I always like to keep looking back at that chapter operations description there. Does your chapter excel in operating processes, including policies? So look back at that as you're answering these questions and really try to make sure you're keeping focus on that category when you're explaining this too. So first off, you're going to talk about what the program is that you're highlighting. In detail, right? The results, how did it change from what happened before in your chapter? What program event best practice, was it successful or not and why? And then what did members say? Share outcomes and results. So these are some examples here just so you guys can see kind of what you would find here on the application when you're filling that out. So pretty easy information to include and put together. And I think Fatima said earlier too, definitely work on this with your board and share ideas. It should be a collaborative effort for sure, not just like your awards chair or your past president filling it out.
The other thing I think I will emphasize on this is to make sure you follow your submission in this order. You don't want the judges to be bouncing around and all of a sudden results is in a last paragraph. They're really judging and following kind of this order of submission. So the more that it follows that, the easier they will be able to look at it and score.
Yeah, think of an RFP. Come on, we all do RFPs, right? It's the same kind of thing. If our vendors aren't following instructions, they're probably going to be getting docked points. So it's kind of a similar process, honestly.
Yep.
And you're working with procurement people who are evaluating this. And so
Yes. Yeah, so we are being pretty critical.
But I just want to comment that, you know, that question that you read, was this program, et cetera, successful or not? People are so worried about saying, wow, I'm applying for this outstanding award. I can't say that anything didn't work out or wasn't great. And that's really awesome to be able to say, wow, we really thought it went really well, but there were a few things that we could change and make better for next time. That is not a negative. You don't get less points or something like that because you say, wow, this part didn't work out and we either wouldn't do it again or we would change it. So don't be afraid of that.
Yep. Good point. And again, think about this as if somebody else is reading it. if I'm going to read it and look at your program, you're already telling me the pitfalls before I even try to implement something new. You're telling me that we didn't start in far enough advance. Well, that tells me that I need to do that for next time. So again, think of it as if you were looking for information or help on the subject that you're presenting.
Jenny, yes, Jen offers a debrief. We did one for my chapter last year. We wanted to know what we did well, what we could have done better.
And we'll, Ginny, I'll go into that in a little bit more detail here after this. I have some resources and past submissions and things like that.
So these outstanding award winners submissions, they basically they provide materials that go out onto our resource guide out on the NIGP website. So this is so awesome. So if you want to go out and get some tips on best practices and operations here, you can go out here and see. So the ones with the little box by them, you can see those are actually best practices that came in through the Outstanding Chapter Awards program. So those are out there. So they're readily available to be shared with other chapters on those different tips for different programs. So you'll find them out here, chapter governance, under membership, events, and conferences. So just depending on what category those fit best in, Jen's been putting those out there to share.
And they're not just the winners, it's everybody who submitted. They're
Oh,
out.
I forgot that. Sorry. I didn't say that right.
That's
Yep.
okay. That's okay. So no, it's just because you didn't win doesn't mean that you didn't have a good idea or a value to share with the other chapters. So we want to make sure that we get all of those out there.
Awesome.
Thank you. Next, we're going to do, we've talked a lot about these things kind of spattered throughout it, but Ginger and Alyssa are going to, as judges themselves, they're going to give you some tips to think about when submitting.
Yeah, we've already said some tips that way, and I do think that they're helpful. But reading is important. I often, not to go back to the responding to an RFP and the vendors and things like that, but we know they don't read. And I understand that this is a lot, and we've tried to make this as simple as possible, but just read it. And that might not just be you. I would have a group do it, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and this isn't going to be answered by one person. Rome wasn't built by one person. It's not going to be done by one person either. So think about it that way. It does not have to be just one person. It can be that group. And even if you just don't have that capability, you only have you responding, have somebody else look it over and just say, does this make sense? Does this sound right? Etc. Reading out loud also, Ginny. Yes, I agree with that. Doesn't make sense to someone who is not familiar with your chapter. So in the Outstanding Award, if you don't respond to a category, if you don't say yes, you don't say no, you just leave it blank, that is 0 points. So be sure that you've answered every single question, again, even if it's no, so that you aren't leaving any points on the table that way. And then, don't repeat the same things. We do ask different questions, and there's a reason for that. So make sure it kind of flows all together, but you're answering the questions that we asked thoroughly. Oftentimes, we ask 2 questions and people will just answer the one. So be sure to go back up to that question, read it again, and say, did I fully answer this? And then, like Alyssa said, go back to that original response and say, what are they looking for? Does this come out in my application? Again, read over your application, ask for feedback. We do suggest it is a group effort. Maybe it is lots of people giving you the information and one person actually putting it together and responding. Maybe it's 2 people getting together and responding together. That's really up to you, but it is a group effort. This is about your board and your chapter, which again is not one person. And again, we also talked about solely on pictures. It is not my favorite to say, see here, and it is a link somewhere else. At least tell me what's in that link. When I go there, what am I supposed to be seeing? So if you need to have a link because, it's a page on your chapter website, that's awesome. It's supporting what you're talking about. But tell me what I'm going to see when I go there. What do you want me to see? Because sometimes it's like, go there, and like buried in the 3rd or 4th paragraph is the thing that you wanted me to find. And that isn't very helpful, for the scoring that way. Just again, like when vendors say, see attached. so frustrating when they say that because we allow attachments, but I still want them to explain it. Then they can have the attachment saying you can find more information if you'd like there. So those are just some tips as you go through it. Take your time. You know, this is important, and I think that you'll find it is easier than you might think it is.
All right. So focus on the outstanding awards, focus on, again, I already said this earlier, but on 1 or 2 at the most for your application. I like to think of it as, you know, like, what was the most awesome thing we did this last year? And then kind of go from there. Well, what category does that fall under? What can we really like showcase? So provide detail. Again, we're gonna repeat ourselves. More detail, the better. What can you fit on those? Fill up those 5 pages. Make sure and include and quantify the outcome of the program. So share results, give us data. I know that was something that we, I think when we had our debrief was something we could have done better, was share more data, give us more numbers. We like, what was the outcome? Don't be vague. Don't send the judges on a search and find mission. Describe and embed what's needed to really describe what you've done. And then even if you don't succeed, don't be down on yourself. Don't say, I'm not going to do that again. I could say we've submitted several years in a row and we didn't win, the outstanding award for several years, but we kept trying. It just gives you something to strive for, to do better the next year. And you never know who you're going up against. The applications that come in, people have some amazing things they're doing, and it doesn't hurt to try to put your application in the hat to see how you're going to do, so yeah.
Thank you, guys. Those are some great tips. And again, things that we kind of spattered throughout. So let me talk real quickly here to close about some resources. Ginny, you asked about some feedback. So here's a couple things. I have directly linked each one of the submissions for the Outstanding Award last year, the winners. So you can see what previous winning applications look like, what we're expecting or what we want to see in those. If you have submitted a Outstanding Award previous and want one-on-one on how can we improve, what did the judges say about our applications, schedule those with me. The judges, as part of their scoring, actually have to give me feedback. They don't just give a number and a total. They actually tell me why they're scoring that. So that's on purpose for us to go back and say, you didn't answer anything in this section, or to Alyssa's point, we just talked about, I wanted some data. I wanted to see some numbers in here. If you're talking about member growth or member retention, why do we not talk about, what your numbers changed from, or the list of things that you did to make the difference? So I will do those one-on-ones. So anybody that wants them, I know there were a couple people that requested last fall. And I didn't schedule those then because I knew that we may be tweaking this form, and I didn't want to go through a debrief knowing that there may be a change. So I know Rocky Mountain Dave, and I know Wes, you and Arkansas both wanted them. So please email me and we'll get those on the books in the next couple of weeks to go through those places that you can improve on. Here is, I think Valerie asked about it. Here is where you can find the forms. There is a landing page of awards and recognitions under the chapter flyout. There's going to be 3 documents here you're going to find. One is going to just be the guidelines and criteria for both awards, and then each one of the submission applications for each one of those. Again, when you're submitting, the seal needs to be a separate document, and 1 or 2 of the outstanding awards need to be separate. I don't need them PDF'd into one and to separate. I think the other thing, it didn't happen a lot last year, but I need your seal document application to stay as an Excel document, because there is calculations. Those are put into a bigger Excel spreadsheet that does some wonderful math for me, that does those calculations. So I can't get that PDF because I need to be able to extrapolate that data out. When in doubt, ask me and ask your ambassadors. I will tell you that while you may not think so, your ambassador could be a resource for you, because your ambassador will never judge your own applications. So Alyssa's a prime example. She can be a great support for her chapter and whoever's putting it together, because Alyssa is not going to judge her own chapter submission. I go as far sometimes not even allowing them to judge in the same size category as their chapter in, or if they've ever done any visits outside of their area. So I'm very big on not having any conflicts of interest, because the ambassadors score them. So I want you to use them to review or to ask questions about your submission. So we are a resource for you.
Yeah, and shout out to all the chapter ambassadors that are on this call. We see you.
Carrie asked about, is the spreadsheet new this year? No, if you're talking to them about the spreadsheet for the performance standard seal, it was an Excel spreadsheet last year, as well as the data that we give you to help fill that out. It is the same form that it has been the last 2 years. So we have another question here. Casey asked, it's a little bit off topic, but talking about the individual awards, since that deadline's coming up here with NIGP, do the local chapter awards have any influence in the national individual awards? We're trying to determine whether we need to beat the deadline on Friday. I'm not sure I understand when you mean by influence. We certainly encourage you to submit your local award winners for the national awards. It's a 2-tier approach. You nominate somebody and then that individual fills out the application. I'd say 75 to 85% of all of the applicants that come in have won their local awards already, but you can do it through self-nomination and endorsement letters. So Casey, I would certainly encourage you, because the first piece of this is the easiest piece, is just nominating somebody. You just have to fill out a name, and I think there is a brief thing that you have to do to the write-up, but actually the work is done by the person that you're nominating to complete the application. So I would certainly want to make sure that your local award winners are getting thrown in the hat in time to win or to be eligible to be part of the National Awards program. So I hope that helps. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were looking for, Casey.
Yes, no, that definitely helps. Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, if you've got local award winners already, there's no reason why chapters shouldn't be putting those names in the hat. Again, the first part of it is the easy part. It's a good question though. Any other questions? I think you guys asked a lot of great questions. Ginger and Alyssa, thank you very much. I think it's nice that you guys help present as the ones who actually are part of the committee that evaluate and do the scoring. So thank you for your input on that. As always, guys, if anybody has questions, do not hesitate to email me or your ambassador with questions. I think we did talk about it, and I went over it real quickly here. The due date is the 27th of May, so there is plenty of time to still submit these. For us to have one-on-ones, again, this is not the hundreds of hours that Chapter of the Year used to be, so please consider doing it. Take that time and that value to show to your members what you all are doing and being recognized, and I think you guys will feel rewarded for it. But let us know if you have questions. But thank you so much.
Jen, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Ironically, as we're on this meeting, I had one of my officers emailing me because apparently our chapter has not done the membership form that was
Membership
due.
data form, yes.
Yeah, that I used to do when I was president. And the reason why is because they're saying when they did the membership reporting and extracted it from Club Express, because this is the first year we've transitioned over, that they're not seeing a field that indicates the national NIGP membership status for them to identify how many chapter members are national members. And I just wondered if we have anyone else on the call that's on Club Express that had that issue, because I know it's a field in our member profiles.
I have not heard that, and I certainly have gotten all my member data forms from those 30 chapters on Club Express. It could be two things. Cassie, it could be the way that they're pulling that data or choosing to pull it. If not, it's something we can certainly take offline. They can still complete it, because if they got the list from me, from NIGP, they could go down and see. It's a manual process that a lot of chapters do to find out who that dual membership is. But we can take that offline, because there certainly should be a way, and I've had all of our other Club Express complete that form.
Yeah, I mean, they can work out the Club Express part. I'm instructing them to get the list from you like I used to because I didn't trust our members to update their profiles.
Yep, and I always encourage that as well too, because if that onus is on them, you never really know. And for the member data form, I don't want to be giving you an assessment fee for somebody that you shouldn't have been paying for. So it's always good, regardless if you have that field in your database, is to double check it against NIGPs.
Hey,
Yeah, so-
Cassandra,
Thank you.
Cassandra, we got ours from Caitlin. She helped us with that list. So we
Yep.
could cross compare with our current local versus national.
Cassie, who do you want me to just send it to somebody, or do you?
No, I'm teaching them to fish,
Okay.
Jen. I'm teaching them to fish,
All right.
you know?
I appreciate that. Okay, all right, guys, if you need anything else, I'm here for you. Please send me an email, and thank you for your time today. And Ginger and Alyssa, thank you so much for your time presenting with me. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Good job,
Have a
guys.
good one, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Bye, Alyssa. Thank you so much.
See ya.
See ya.